It is an indescribable tragedy that Christianity is now under such threat in the Middle East, an area where Christians have lived for 2,000 years and across which Islam spread in 700 AD, with people of different faiths living together peaceably for centuries.
Welcome back to The Arena. I'm Michael Corrin, and I am surprised. More of that later. Look, anyone who says that Christians are not horribly persecuted in Muslim nations is a denier, pure and simple. Very few people, though, even those who admit that this is going on, are willing to condemn these crimes. But Prince Charles, as we saw, is now an exception, a glorious one. I am surprised, I really am. I also find it incredibly refreshing. Sun News European correspondent Simon Kent joins us from London. What's the context? Why did he suddenly make this speech?
I think the Prince of Wales had had enough. I think, like all of us, he's watched events in the Middle East, specifically talking about Syria and northern Iraq, aghast, and other parts of the Middle East where Christians have been pushed out, where they've lived for thousands of years, and also look at Egypt as well in the last 12 months. And I think the Prince of Wales, when he becomes monarch, he will also have to inherit the title of governor of the Church of England. So he'll have a role then. So maybe he's rehearsing that role, and he feels the need to speak out because no one else is speaking out.
Yeah, he becomes defender of the faith. He got into some trouble a few years ago because he said he'd prefer to be known as defender of faith. And people said, well, you can't defend every faith because some of them are mutually exclusive. And I think that's certainly the case with Islam and Christianity. Look, he's been criticised over the years for being, if you like, too supportive of the Muslim diaspora community in the United Kingdom. I don't mean kind and sensitive and caring, but he was too praising and not sufficiently critical when maybe crimes were committed in the name of Islam. So there's a bit of a transformation here.
There is a transformation. He's come out of the naughty corner because he got pushed there by a lot of the traditional media here in the United Kingdom. He's seen as somehow irrelevant, and a lot of people would prefer to ignore him to death. They much rather see the photogenic members, the younger members of the royal family to the fore, and people can talk about what they're wearing and what parties went to. So maybe Prince Charles feels this is how he can put his mark. He'll stand up for Christianity, and he spoke very strongly and very wisely. He took a risk. He put his head over the parapet. He did attract some criticism, but I think a lot of people also were taken aback. They said, here's a prince who used to talk to flowers and was seen hugging trees and walking in the forest, communing with nature, and suddenly he's got something relevant to say. I just wish more people would put their head over the parapet and say something as well, because the prince made some very good points, and he made some very good points about Christians being pushed out of the Middle East. I hope more people were listening.
Yeah, look, he does have that sort of ambivalent reputation. On the one hand, he's spoken out, I think, very intelligently about issues of architecture and sociology. He's spoken about inner city decay and how we have to do more. But as you say, he's also had some interesting conversations with plant life. So we're not entirely sure. Look, if Princess Diana, God rest her soul, had spoken out on this issue, the world would have been aghast. She chose, they were good causes, but fairly safe causes. We're going to show a clip now of some people on the streets in England, which could mean anything at all, who responded to this. Can we play that, please?
Religion is everybody's personal matter. This has nothing to do with the politicians or kings or queens or like that.
In this day and age, it's sort of a bit more secular society. I don't really view it as more of a faith thing. I just think we're more of a human rights thing more than anything.
Whether he's more effective than any other world leader or religious leader, or Russell Brand, I wouldn't say so. Not, it's Prince Charles.
Or Russell Brand. Unbelievable. The first guy there...
How did he get in there?
Well, he gets in everywhere because, he's a self-promoter par excellence. The first guy said, religion's personal, so apparently if you're murdered for being a Christian in a Muslim country, that's all personal. The second fellow I thought made a good point. He said it's a human rights issue. It is actually a human rights issue.
Well, it is. You have a human right to follow your faith and your religion without fear of having your head chopped off or be putting on a spike or being decapitated in a public square. So he has every right to speak out. His pulpit is a bit bigger than your pulpit or my pulpit, but people will listen. And I don't think you can divorce people in his position from having a voice. And I'm quite astonished to even hear the word Russell Brand in the same sentence as His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. But tell you what, I'd probably listen to what the Prince of Wales says before I'd listen to anything that came out of the mouth of Russell Brand. And good on the Prince of Wales for speaking up. You can't divorce your religious faith from human rights, and everyone has that human right to practice their faith and not be kicked out of their homelands.
Mm-hmm. Now, there is a significance here because he will, we assume, become king, and Britain, although not the power it was, of course, still has enormous influence in certain parts of the world. Pakistan, not of the Middle East, terrible persecution of Christians, very strong British influence. Saudi Arabia, the royal families of Saudi Arabia and the UK, they're relatively close. Indonesia, not such a close relationship, but the king, even the Prince of Wales, they tour, they meet. What he has said will not be forgotten. You know this. Islamic countries, particularly Islamic radicals, will remind their governments what he said, and there could be a bit of backlash.
There could be a backlash. There could be a backlash here in the UK, which, believe me, has problems of its own at the moment, accommodating different faiths and different persuasions. And yes, I'm tiptoeing around certain topics, but
Yep.
the Prince of Wales will live with this. But I get the impression he's quite comfortable with that. He's going to take on a very serious role of monarch, and he's laying down the ground now, perhaps for how seriously he intends to take the role as the head and protector of the Church of England. Good for him. He's pushing very hard. This will precede him when he does go to a lot of those countries, and I think that is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's marvellous what he's done, and Britain is doing fairly well in this. The Archbishop of Canterbury has been quite fierce but controlled in what he said about persecution, so there is some hope, it does seem. Hey, my friend, always a pleasure. Thank you so very much.